Hello, my friends. I kind of want to start with a wow today. And it is because the more I see through the matrix, because it seems to be something that's with me all the time, it's like once you start seeing it, you cannot not see it anymore. And the more I talk about it feels like I'm opening up some kind of a channel in myself to be able to see it more. That's probably the best way to describe it. And in that, I notice that there are people coming into my life or things are suggested to me that I check out, and it confirms my own experience, but it also many times widens the gap so I can see more because they are maybe using words or examples of things that I may think I already know or may already be talking about. But somehow that little switch, that different word or different sentence or way of saying it or seeing it, my lens goes like, whoops. And that's why I start saying wow, because it's so much. I mean, it's seeing through things that I already thought I had seen, but it is so much more than that. So I think I wrote about the other day, it can be a little discombobulating. And it is, but it's also really, really powerful. But it is quite shocking when we start seeing what this world is. And of course, I've talked about it, right? It's an illusion, it's the matrix, it's a simulation, it's an overlay. And that is what we see, that is what we interact with every day. And we think it's all real because it feels real to our five senses. And that's why knowing that the matrix is basically the five sense mind. So just because you can see, hear, taste, touch, smell it, touching is also a big one. It's like, no, this is real. I can feel it. It's solid. But it's still experienced through the senses. And the senses is some kind of an outlet of the mind, of the matrix. So it's still happening in the matrix. And you may I think using the virtual reality headset, that kind of helped me maybe a year ago when I first connected it with that. It's like, oh yeah. And if you ever wear one of those, I haven't done it personally. I think I have enough just wearing it here 24/7. Um, but that was helpful because when I see people wearing them, they're boxing and they're falling, and it's really as if they are in a real experience through their five senses because the virtual reality headset is in front of their eyes, which is one of the five senses that the virtual reality experience that we have of life is coming through. I don't even know what I want to say today besides the wow, but I think I want to just keep building a little bit on the things that we have so deeply, deeply taken for granted that we do not question them. We would bet our life on that it is true, but that doesn't make it true. I may have shared this before, but a friend of mine, this is a while ago, we were talking about it in his car, and he says, "So are you telling me that this steering wheel is not real?" And he went like bang, 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 because it feels real, it looks real, it sounds real. But so I would say, well, it's about as real as a dream is real. So if you can kind of make that little shift in your mind to just question things more and not take it all for granted just because you're experiencing it with your senses, your five senses, not with the soul sense or the sixth sense. And where I am currently in my state of experiencing evolution, I would still say there is something here, and I call it the soul sense. I don't even know if that's true because where I am right now, I'm questioning everything. But I'm not dismissing anything because there are things in the matrix that can actually be very useful to unravel what is not true. For instance, here we are on YouTube, and that is physical, right? It's visual. You can feel it, you can hear me, all happening through the five sense mind. So it feels like a message can come through the matrix, sharing that the matrix is actually not real. So I am using the matrix to unravel the matrix. I know it sounds a little strange, but I also remember that Joel Goldsmith, back in the days when he was around, I heard this on one of his tapes. He said that we use the mind to dismantle the mind. So we can't just throw it all out but then what? Because then we still have all these attachments and all these tendrils that are all connected to the matrix. So there also need to be some steps where we start dismantling them until that's not necessary anymore either. I speak from my own experience, and I think there are many things that are in the matrix that have been helping me and are still helping me to let go of it, to see through it. So that's why I don't want to dismiss it all, but I want to have my discernment out to really know when something is serving the letting go and when something is pulling me in, maybe to learn more, to explore it more, instead of using it to let it go. There's a big difference there. And many, many, many people get pulled into the matrix deeper, believing that they're doing some deep healing work. I'm not saying they aren't doing healing work, but I think there are a lot who kind of started getting identified with these whatever healing modalities, and then they stay in them and they're not being liberated. They may experience a better life. They may have more joy and freedom in the life, but it is still in the matrix. It's still in the prison cell. And there are so many tricky ways in the prison cell that will tell us that we need to do things here. For instance, we can paint the walls in the prison cell and feel like, my God, my life is so much better now. There's colors, there's music, and I feel much better. Well, I like that too. And I think these are very important steps, maybe more so in the beginning than later on the journey, because we're still in the prison cell. Now, if those colored walls and the music help us to see through that this is still a prison, then, mission complete, it's doing the work. But if it pulls us in more to get really comfortable in our new colorful cell, then it's not serving the purpose. I hope you can see the difference. So what do we do? And there are many, many things we can do. And I think we all need to find our own way based on where we are on the journey. I think still it's really important to have some kind of an inner compass. Let's say the soul sense, right? That tells you like there is something else here. I want to know what it is. And then stay with that. You stay with that. You have that almost like a measure stick when you do this, you could just, is this liberating me more? Is this keeping me present inside? Or whatever it is that you long for, is this giving me more peace? So you need to measure it against what you're doing. Or is it just pulling you in more because you get fascinated and entertained and whatever it is in this other, let's say, modality, then you're still not being liberated. So we need to find the ones that really help us to unhook. And there are many ways. I often use the tapping, which I've seen amazing results with, both in myself and with my clients. It just somehow it breaks the trance, at least for the moment. And then some energy is liberated, and then there's more clarity. So then after that, the invitation is always to stay with the clarity and let that take you to the next level or the next opening. I benefit a lot by going out in the redwoods here where I live, and there's some creeks there. Or I called it a bubbling brook because sometimes I sit near that somewhere it's quiet, and I just close my eyes and I just focus on the sound of the creek. And I have a pretty crazy active mind, probably based on my trauma in the past. So for me, it's very helpful to let my mind just focus on one very simple thing. That is the sound of the babbling brook, of the running creek. Because when I can just stay and connect with that and let my mind only hear that, it actually brings me more into the present moment, which is all there is. The rest is all matrix that pulls us away. So this little babbling brook, which is still audible, right? It's still my ears. I can see it, I can smell it. So you can say it's still the matrix. But in this case, just focusing on the sound, that helps still my mind and it helps me drop in deeper. And then I notice, like, oh my God, this is all there is. This now moment is all there is. And there's not much else to do because the now moment is always all there is. And there's nothing we need to do there except allowing that now moment to live our lives. And that can be lived in many, many ways. It doesn't mean I have to sit near that creek all day, 24/7. It just means that I might get inspiration. A poem may start showing up in my mind, or something or nothing. And then suddenly it feels like, oh, I'm going to walk home now. And then I just walk in the now, as the now. And then I'm just open to every new now. That is one way that works really well for me. And you may have your own ways. And I would encourage you to stay with what works for you to unhook from the matrix. But realizing how much of what we engage in all day long is the matrix. It is very helpful to recognize it. And when we do, we can let it go. When we don't recognize it, we're totally enmeshed in it. And we're just going with it, believing it's all true. And then when you go, it's like the little wake-up call, the Dharma bell goes, oh, the matrix. Oh. And then you can take a deep breath and just not touch it. Just pull back and observe it. Just keep it very, very simple. Simple is really, really good when you want to get out of the matrix, because the matrix is anything but simple. So when you get a sense of simple, like, oh, I don't need to do anything here. Let me just not touch it. Let me just breathe. Let me just see what is here when I'm not there. And then try and just stay there as long as you can, as long as feels good. And maybe you need to keep pulling back because the matrix wants to pull you in all the time. I talked about it, I think yesterday. It's like so tricky, so tricky. So we need to out trick it. We need to get outside of the trick. We don't want to be tricky. We want to get outside of that trickiness into the simplicity, into the stillness, into the now moment, because that's all there is. And it is very, very simple.